Well, day one of 49ers 2022 minicamp is in the books. And yes, the 49ers are hitting their offseason stride. Things certainly feel different. Some more superstars in the house. Deebo Samuel, Nick Bosa, and Trent Williams were all in the house on Tuesday. And that means that we could play the video because I think this is one that you're going to like. Add it to the stream right here. Here are the highlights from today. I start off with Trey Lance, who had a good day. Talk about that in a little bit. Here he is throwing some early warm-up passes in the red zone. We had a nice look at Brandon Ayuk with his helmet semi-on, then off, flicks the hair back, puts it on. Brandon Ayuk obviously has been the leading 49ers receiver here, with Deebo Samuel not actually participating in practice, but you're going to get some footage of Deebo in just a little bit. Some more of Trey Lance along with 49ers backup quarterback Nate Sudfeld. A quick shot of Brock Purdy. And here he is, the man of the hour, Deebo Samuel, standing next to Javon Kinlaw. Now, what's amazing is that Deebo Samuel is wider than Javon Kinlaw. And I don't mean that in a bad fashion against Deebo Samuel. He's just a truck. See how wide he is in that shot? And Javon Kinlaw is built like Thanos in this picture. So you get the idea. These are some big guys that the 49ers have. Deebo Samuel did some running over there on the side of the field, or past one of the end zones technically, so at the end of the field. We'll go back to Trey Lance. This was, again, in warm-ups at practice. You see the quicker release that he's been working on. Couple throws here in this video clip. So Trey Lance had himself a nice little day out in the sun. And here's a nice shot. This is the left side of the 49ers offensive line that we anticipate for the 2022 season. Trent Williams at left tackle, Aaron Banks, number 65, at left guard, replacing Laken Tomlinson. Take a look at Big Trent, 71. This is his first practice of the 2022 season. The star power was certainly on display. Here's Brandon Ayuk next to Juwan Jennings, the 1-2 49ers receivers, participating here with wide receivers coach Leonard Hankerson. Juwan Jennings has really impressed the 49ers this offseason. He certainly looks the part, and he's going to have a big role, health permitting, here in this 2022 season. Just a veteran through and through now. Has showed up to these OTAs and this mini camp in excellent shape. And we'll finish up this video by taking a look at 49ers rookie quarterback, Mr. Irrelevant, Brock Purdy, throwing into the end zone. So, yes, that was today. Here's Matt Barrow's article. He got to write the daily recap. I have a piece on Jake Brendel that's going to be coming tomorrow. But Trey Lance Sharp, Deebo Samuel, and Nick Bosa present from Matt Barrow's. That's up on The Athletic, so go ahead and subscribe right now. I'm going to go back to the full screen mode, and I'm going to talk about some of the key things that we learned both from practice and from the press conferences right after. Trent Williams spoke, and he divulged that he actually advised Deebo Samuel. He said that he would never go out of his way to advise somebody unless they asked him for advice. And Deebo actually approached Trent Williams asking him for advice over this whole contract brouhaha, which, I think might have taken off on Deebo Samuel a little bit. I think might have gotten more dramatic than he initially planned for it to become, because it's clear that Deebo likes being around the guys. You saw the video there walking around Javon Kinlaw, sprinting behind the end zone on the practice field. Kyle Shanahan himself even said it. The relationship between him and Deebo Samuel hasn't soured. He's joking around with people, Kyle and Deebo. I mean, Deebo was in Kyle's office so many times over the past several years, and I'm sure he'll continue to hang out in Kyle's office moving forward. It's funny because if you just judged by Twitter, if you just judged by Deebo Samuel deleting his Instagram photos referencing the 49ers, if you judged by what I thought were a lot of agent-driven actions, I think Tory Dandy was behind a lot of this, well, then you would think that Deebo Samuel and the 49ers, you would think they hate each other's guts, but that's not the case. Deebo was back. Of course, Deebo probably would have been fined had he not been back, but the contract situation has certainly thawed out. Deebo Samuel wasn't present at the Seahawks practice today. A.J. Brown has already been traded. These are the other two Tory Dandy candidates, right? The same agent for Deebo Samuel, A.J. Brown, and DK Metcalf. Well, the other two guys have had issues with either their current team or their former team at the start of this offseason, hence the trade of A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles. And DK Metcalf, well, he wasn't at practice today. That leaves Deebo Samuel as the odd man out. Deebo Samuel at practice Deebo Samuel on his way to receiving a contract extension for the 49ers. And, Kyle Shanahan illustrated this. I'll go back to Trent Williams the other day. Social media is not real life. Kyle had a great quote that I'm going to pop open and read to you right now, because somebody asked him, well, you say that you're on good terms with Deebo Samuel, but it certainly seems, based on the fact that Deebo Samuel, deleted all the 49ers pictures off of Instagram, unfollowed them on social media, and requested a trade, it certainly seems that you can't be, or you weren't on great terms with Deebo Samuel. Well, Kyle Shanahan said this, and I think this should help outline the situation and have people calm down a little bit on social media. Shanahan, a relationship, when you talk about that has nothing that has to do with him and me. That doesn't have anything to do with statements. It doesn't have anything to do with Instagram. It doesn't have anything to do with people repeating stuff. It has to do with the words that come out of my mouth to a man and him back at me, and nothing else. So everybody's wondering, how can Deebo just come back and act like everything's cool? Well, it's because all of the crap has been chest puffing and bluster through social media. And it's hard for me to believe that it was driven by Deebo Samuel himself. The agent is the center, the commonality between all of these contract disputes. Tory Dandy is the agent for Samuel, for Metcalf, and for A.J. Brown. None of these situations have gone particularly smoothly. Hollywood Brown got traded this offseason too. Guess who his agent was? Tory Dandy. So I said it in the live this morning. It was a no-lose situation for Deebo Samuel, because I think fans are going to forget about this as soon as he signs the extension and starts producing for the 49ers again. But with the same agent representing all of these same wide receivers this offseason, it was an exceptional offseason, right, for wide receivers getting paid. It was beneficial to these receivers to have chaos surrounding any potential maneuverings contractually surrounding them, because chaos could instigate action. You saw chaos instigate action in Tennessee, where the Titans traded A.J. Brown to the Philadelphia Eagles and he got paid. Obviously, it wasn't nearly part of the same shitstorm that we saw with Hollywood Brown, but he also got traded and he also got some money. But when you look at an offseason like this one, where movement would be beneficial to third-year wide receivers entering their fourth year, obviously 3 years of experience for Samuel, Metcalf, and Deebo Samuel. You want either movement on the team front to get the contract that you want, or you want movement on the contractual front from your own team to get paid a year early. Well, if movement's going to be something that helps you make more money, then the agent is going to generate something that encourages the teams that hold the current contractual rights of any given player to actually oblige with the desire for movement. So Tory Dandy created a lot of chaos. A.J. Brown got moved. Right now, he's obviously creating a little bit of chaos, or DK Metcalf is helping him by not showing up in Seattle. And with the case of Deebo Samuel, there was chaos created, but the 49ers really weathered the storm. And I think you have to credit Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch for not really bowing to the social media ebbs and flows, the waves that seem to be so popular in this day and age. And I just read you the Shanahan quote that said that, I don't really consider anything communicated over Instagram to be legitimate. I consider my face-to-face communication with Deebo Samuel to be legitimate. Lo and behold, he was at the facility today, and I think that things are headed on the right track. Now, Trent Williams advised Deebo Samuel throughout all of this, and this was after Deebo sought out his advice, and Trent said he's grabbing the situation by the horns. He said he's showing his maturity by showing up to this thing, by figuring out the adult's way through things. And this, yes, is what Deebo had to do when the 49ers did not oblige his trade request during the draft. The 49ers ultimately hold all the leverage here because Deebo's still under contract with them for another season. And I don't think that a holdout where Deebo doesn't get paid is particularly appealing to him. So I think that, it was a test to see if the 49ers would blink. And they called Deebo's bluff, or they called Tory Dandy's bluff, if we don't want to blame Deebo for this situation. There was no blinking happening. And now Deebo Samuel, I think, did the prudent thing, the rational thing, and showed up at 49ers minicamp. And he was running around there on the field. The 49ers aren't going to make him practice this week. They're not going to, expose him to unnecessary injury, especially since he hasn't been with the team. But it was big news because things definitely feel different with more superstars in the house. And Deebo Samuel is certainly a superstar. So is Nick Bosa, who participated in some drills. Boy, I'll tell you what, Nick Bosa looking lean and mean again. And obviously you saw Trent Williams in those offensive line drills. Trent Williams healthy. The ankle has recovered. He actually acknowledged today this is going to hurt. So brace yourselves if you don't want to relive any of playoff pain from last season. But Trent Williams said he acknowledged that he shouldn't have played in the NFC title game. Remember, he was coming off a high ankle sprain against Green Bay in the cold at Lambeau Field. And there was a lot of question in the week heading up to the NFC title game if Trent Williams would be able to gut it out and play. And he ultimately did suck it up and he did play, but he delivered his worst game of the season. 5 pressures most of the year, worst run blocking grade of the season, and I think probably the worst pass blocking grade of the season according to PFF. And the 49ers obviously lost by 3 points. And today Trent said, I think that Colton McKivitz on 2 legs would have been better than me on just 1 leg. And unfortunately, hindsight is 2020. Trent also said that. But you could kick yourself all you want for that one. And Trent Williams wanted to battle it out in the heat of the moment. Hard to blame him. That was his first chance to play in an NFC title game, and he played in it. And unfortunately for the 49ers, they got dominated up front by the Rams defensive line. And I think it's fair to say they would not have gotten dominated to that extent had Trent Williams been healthy. And probably not to that extent had Colton McKivitz played instead of Trent Williams. At least that's the point that Big Trent made today. However, in week 18 against the Rams, Trent couldn't play and Colton McKivitz did play, and he did give up 5 pressures. But it's worth noting that the 49ers actually won that game as opposed to the NFC Championship game. So it's coulda, shoulda, woulda at this point if you look back into the past. Let's move on to Trey Lance. Trey Lance had the best day I've seen him have. And Kyle Shanahan said he's stacking days. Now, I'm the first to say, and I read it today on Twitter. I wrote it today. I also read my own tweet. I could go to it. I want to read this one word for word. This one's important enough to read word for word. By the way, why don't we take a quick little hiatus here? When we started this show, I think I was at like 14,900 subs. It might not be realistic to get to 15,000 in the course of one show, but I think that's a cool enough milestone to at least give it a try. So if you're watching right now and there's 162 of you and the count is growing, hit that subscribe button. I want to try to get the 15,000 on this show. So seriously, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. Let's get the 15K on the show. The channel has grown remarkably fast. It would be awesome to see that boost up to 15K while we're live right now. So I'll take a look in a little bit to see if we bounced up and how much we bounced up, but hit that subscribe button if you are watching. Now on Trey Lance, this is my appraisal of the situation, because I think that it was absolutely ridiculous over the course of winter and the spring. We had people coming in with fake sources, essentially, because I don't know what source would be able to say anything about a quarterback who wasn't actually practicing at the time. But you had people parachuting in from the national media saying that Trey Lance was disappointing the 49ers at a time when it was literally impossible to disappoint them. And now, as soon as the 49ers started practicing, you have the other side of the coin, people proclaiming Trey Lance to be the next MVP and a surefire success. And it's like, guys, why are we running from one extreme to the other? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And what I said was, it'd be best if people resisted the temptation to coronate Trey Lance based off June minicamp practices, in the same way that many should have resisted labeling him as a failure based off of no practices at all. It might not be popular, but it is okay to say we don't know until the actual action starts. And this is what John Lynch said last week at the Dwight Clark Legacy Series event. He said, I'm excited about Trey Lance, but I literally do not know. So along those lines, why don't we actually, play some more Trey Lance? Why don't we take a look at some of the throws? Why don't we enjoy Trey Lance throwing at practice and, use this as an opportunity to simply enjoy the moment, enjoy the process of Trey Lance getting better, of Trey Lance working on his craft. Kyle Shanahan emphasized that it is key for Trey Lance to stack practices, to look at these in the big picture. He said early in OTAs, Trey was just trying to win the day. Trey, like a lot of the other 49ers players, you show up maybe a little bit out of shape, not used to the practice flow. You're trying to win each practice. Well, that's not how you truly get better. You truly get better by going out and trying to stack practices together, by working on nuances, by not just trying to rip off big plays here and there at OTAs or minicamp, but by trying to set other plays up, by trying to realize that you have a finite amount of practice work in the off season and using that finite amount of work to build the larger structure of what's going to carry you through a long regular season. And Kyle Shanahan said today that Trey Lance has been doing that. And Trey, I have to repeat this again, he has just blossomed in front of the media. And, you know, some rookies, they're just like a little shy and they don't have the confidence to you know, go out there and be as gregarious as somebody like Trey Lance in his second year is acting right now. I don't think that was the case, though, for Trey Lance in his rookie season. I think he intentionally tempered his demeanor at these press conferences because he's a good teammate, because he understands his place on the roster, or understood his place on the roster at that time. And Jimmy Garoppolo was with the team. He was the starting quarterback. And Trey Lance wasn't going to go out there and try to have a big swaggy press conference where he's just, you know, communicating that he's the guy. But now Trey Lance is the guy, and he's recognized that, and he has blossomed personality-wise. And, you know, maybe blossom is the wrong term. Maybe he's just opened it up personality-wise, because it's not like that personality's developed. If you talk to 49ers players, they say it's always been there. If you talk to the 49ers who actually did their research on Lance, it's always been there throughout college, obviously, maybe even back to high school. But now it's showing at the NFL level. And I think that's really neat, because it's mirroring the way that he's grabbed control on the field, right? Because as the starting quarterback, as QB1, you have to do it both off the field and on the field. Charvarius Ward today said it himself. He is the face of the franchise, and the 49ers think that Trey Lance has gotten off to a good start in that regard. Play of the day today, Trey Lance to Tanner Hudson. One-handed grab for the former Tampa Bay tight end, who actually, if you follow some Buccaneers fans or Buccaneers writers, you'll know that back in the day when Tanner Hudson was Tampa Bay, he developed a reputation for really nice one-handed catches. And today Hudson was running a little post there over the middle. Didn't look like he was too open, but Trey put in a good pass where only Hudson could get it. And he reached out and he grabbed that pass with one arm. And it was right over the middle, kind of a diving catch. I thought that was the play of the day today. Nate Sudfeld also hit Brandon Ayuk on a bomb, 35, 40-yard pass, perfect pass. Sudfeld does throw a nice deep ball. That was good. And then the 49ers did some work in tighter quarters near the red zone, some 7-on-7 work too, which required a lot of precision. And Lance found Ayuk for a touchdown, which was really neat. Also found Jawan Jennings. Jawan Jennings really impressing the hell out of Kyle Shanahan, by the way. I mentioned that at the top of this show. I think he's set to have a big year. So the 49ers are hitting their offseason stride. That's what happened today. I'm going to open this up for some questions, a longer discussion, because this is a lot of fun. Again, those of you just coming into the room, we're trying to hit 15K subs today. So hit that subscribe button. We were about 100 short when this show first started. And I think it's worth checking to see how many we're at right now, because if we get it during this one show, I think that would be epic. You just go to YouTube Studio, see what's cooking with our sub count, because we're at 250 viewers. This is going to be a fun little primetime show. I'm going to stay on a little extra long today, hunger myself out. Yes, we still have a little bit of a ways to go. We're at 14,905, unless this thing hasn't updated here in a few minutes. So 95 away. If we can get those 95 on this show, I'd be a very happy man. And then I'd go to In-N-Out Burger, have myself a double, protein style, French fries, and a vanilla shake, and be happy. Then I'm going to continue to watch one of my favorite TV shows. I'm not going to tell you which TV show that is, because I know that somebody is going to be a jerk about it, and they're going to talk about spoilers in the chat section. And I don't want to see spoilers right now, so I'll talk about the show when it's actually over. 14,906. Cool. See, somebody hit the subscribe button, so keep on doing it. Oh my God, 14,908. It's just exploding right now. That means that we are officially 82 away from 15K. All right. I feel like an auctioneer right now. I don't want to be an auctioneer. I actually want to answer some of your 49ers questions. Maybe for those people coming in, we can put a new little video up on the screen of the new left side of the 49ers offensive line, Aaron Banks and Trent Williams. And Banks is not a small guy. Banks still weighs 330 pounds, but look at big Trent. next to Aaron Banks. This gives you, I think this could be exciting for the 49ers. Banks at a reworked 330 pounds next to Trent Williams at whatever he is. And obviously he's a freak. And Aaron Banks, I think from an athleticism standpoint, he looks comparable now, right? He doesn't look like he doesn't belong in the NFL. He's reworked the body, and I think that's a good thing for the 49ers. That left side of the offensive line is certainly going to grab attention this year, and the 49ers hope that it grabs attention in dominant fashion with both of those guys working together. Because let's be honest, I think that Laken Tomlinson really benefited from working next to Joe Staley and then next to Trent Williams. And he might have benefited to the tune of over $13 million annually, because that's how much Laken Tomlinson signed for with the New York Jets this past offseason. Will Aaron Banks benefit in the same way? That's a huge question as we enter this 2022 season, because if he does, then the 49ers will have a massive problem solved on the left side of their offensive line. And if Aaron Banks and Trent Williams are both dominant at left guard and left tackle, respectively, well, then the 49ers can get some work done at center as well, because this line, it can have a ripple effect of benefits. It can also have a ripple effect of disasters, right? If Banks is bad at left guard, that hurts the center position. That could, by extension, hurt right guard, and Trent Williams would be playing on an island, and it wouldn't help him either. So it's really important that Banks shows up and plays well, and if Trent Williams can help him play well through some of those combination blocks, just through mere presence, right? Because Trent Williams is going to be a guy that's he commands attention, right? I get it. He's not the pass rusher, but by commanding attention, he has a sphere of influence. And if Trent Williams' sphere of influence is big enough to buoy Aaron Banks in his first season starting, well, that can only help the San Francisco 49ers. I'm going to play the other video too. We have 289 people in now. That's nice. Those of you who are just joining, this is footage from today's practice. I'm going to go ahead and wade into the comment section as you guys like and subscribe right now. Poe does not look, Poe looks short. Poe is 6'1". He is not small. Poe is a bowling ball. He's really strong. I just wrote the piece on him today. He's 300 pounds at 6'1". I don't even know if there's a 6'1" lineman elsewhere in the NFL. The guy is literally built like a cannonball. The shortest 49ers offensive lineman outside of Poe is 6'4". If we really want to talk about Poe, we can go back to it. Here we go. Let's find Poe. He's going to be in this video. There's Poe. Let me stop it. Yeah. That guy in the middle, I'm sorry, Portolo 45, but that guy in the middle does not look small. His biceps are the size of a normal human's legs. Those are big biceps. The guy's, he's got plenty of width. Again, Chris Furster, who's in the back right there, that's Chris Furster, standing next to Spencer Burford, or he's not standing next to him. He's to the right of Spencer Burford. 74 has Joe Staley's own number. Chris Furster, 49ers offensive line coach, he called Jason Poe the bowling ball. And I wrote about Jason Poe. The article came out today. I'm going to pop this one open for you on The Athletic, so you can go ahead and subscribe and check it out. Strength is not an issue. Strength is not a concern for Jason Poe. It's the height that is the concern. So I don't think that the NFL weight room is going to be something that helps Jason Poe alleviate that concern. But the fact that he can run the 4.9 40 at 300 pounds is a little bit lower to the ground. He can be a great ox blocker. He could eventually maybe even be a center, because the arm length, even though it's shorter with that height, it isn't terrible. And the guy gives you a wealth of positional versatility and experience. He played fullback in junior college. So for $1 a month right now, if you go into that chat section, I will post this Jason Poe article. There is the link, and you can go check it out. I have all the videos of him catching passes in that article. I also have some video of Jason Poe practice last week, but there is some amazing stuff in there. Here, Chris Furster even says it. His arm length is not quite what you want. At 300-something pounds, he's still a bowling ball. You need to have a little bit of length and range. He lacks that a little bit because of his stature, but he makes up for it with explosion, quickness, strength, how he plays. He's so fun to watch. He just pulls and rolls people up. He's been great. He's been a joy. He's really stood out as a guy who works out. His college coach, Drew Cronick, actually said that Poe's college coach from Mercer and previously at Lenore Ryan said he thinks that Poe's a lot better than Cole Strange, who the Patriots picked in the first round out of Chattanooga. And the 49ers got Jason Poe as an undrafted free agent. The thing is, he doesn't fit the standard offensive line prototype because he's 6'1". He might be the shortest offensive lineman in the entire National Football League, but he runs a 4.9, which would have been the second fastest time of any offensive lineman at this year's NFL Combine, and he's got a ton of strength. So no, he does not need the weight room, although he'll be in the weight room. It would be nice if he was a little taller, but I think that the 49ers have a uniquely versatile body that they can work with Jason Poe. Do you think the 49ers will go out and poach a top-tier wide receiver in free agency if they have cap space? Well, Julio is no longer a top-tier wide receiver. Julio played, you could count how many snaps Julio played for the Titans, or at least how many games he played for the Titans on one hand last year. So, I mean, Julio was a top-tier wide receiver a couple seasons ago. Maybe last offseason, people still thought so, or at least it was a possibility. Tennessee thought so based on how much they traded for him. But injuries have obviously compromised his career at this point. So I don't think the 49ers, if they do get Julio, they won't need much cap space to do it. They're going to get Julio if they could get him at a discount. Now, if the 49ers still have cap space, which I think they will after they trade Jimmy Garoppolo, that's going to be great money to use on a potential in-season trade. Because potential in-season trades, you're acquiring the contract of a player, right? Usually a pricier veteran if he's worth trading for. And there's not going to be any flexibility at that point to fit him under your cap. So last year, the Rams ran into a problem. They traded for Von Miller. They didn't have enough money as far as cap space to pay him. They got around the problem by getting Denver to pay Von Miller's contract, about 90% of it. It's not every day that you could convince a team that's trading away a player, though, to pay his contract. So the 49ers, if they open up cap space through the trade of Jimmy Garoppolo, could be handy for them before the trade deadline to acquire star power that way. But I wouldn't consider Julio Jones to be, bona fide star power. He's not blue chip star power anymore. And he's the guy that the 49ers would only take on if they could get him at a big time discount. All right. Shanahan did say that you need to see Bosa's quads. Yes, sir. Shanahan said that he has a nice Florida tan. Not Shanahan. Bosa does. And that his quads are as big as ever. But Bosa, both of the last two off seasons, it's surprising. He's been a little bit slimmer in the upper body. The quads are still huge. But I think that slimmer upper body means that he's been working out and he's in great shape. It's not like there's less muscle. He's more lean, just more lean, a little less fat. Ready to move better. And it's become a speed game. It's become a fast man's game at that edge position, getting around athletic tackles. And, I don't think anything has ever indicated that Nick Bosa is lacking strength. And I don't think anything's really indicated he's lacking speed. He's close to a prototypical player, but the fact that he goes back in the lab every offseason with his brother Joey and, develops more and more refinement physically, that he's still tweaking stuff and getting better. Maybe, just increasing the leanness every offseason in this example, that shows you that Nick Bosa is special. The thing about Nick Bosa, I say, and I think that this is true, it's like if you went to a lab and designed somebody to rush quarterbacks, to rush the passer, Nick Bosa would spit out on the other side. The 49ers drafted somebody who was engineered in a lab. I'm kidding, right? But it was engineered in a lab to rush the passer in Nick Bosa. The guy's a specimen. The guy's a prototype. And it was cool to have him back out at practice today. How many players will the Niners stash on the practice squad and how many might they lose? Well, the practice squad fits 16 plus the international exception. That's going to be Alfredo Gutierrez. So 16 players. 53 plus 16 plus 1. That's a 70-man roster when it's all said and done. They've got 90 in the building right now. So they're going to have to say goodbye to about 20 of them. But the injury lists will make that a little bit tougher to predict. David, how excited are you for the defensive talent on the horizon? I think the 49ers defense has a chance to be a top 2 unit this year. I was talking to a couple people on the field today. Some people think that the defensive line is a little bit worse without players like DJ Jones. But I think the whole strength and numbers aspect of the 49ers defensive line is better with guys like Kerry Hyder, Hassan Ridgeway, Drake Jackson added to the fold. Maurice Hurst only played in 2 games for the 49ers last year. Maybe he'll be healthy this season to give the 49ers more. And I think this defensive line wins with strength and numbers. And Nick Bosa is only going to be a year further removed from his ACL tear. So I honestly believe that the 49ers along the defensive front can be better, especially considering they didn't peak until like week 14 of last season. Remember, it was a decent defensive line. It wasn't a great defensive line until late in that year. So say that the arrow is up on the defensive line, or at least stays stable to its late season form. Then the 49ers have what I think might be the best linebacking core in the league between Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, Azeez Al-Shire, Oren Burks, obviously now part of that mix as well. And then the secondary is indisputably better than it was in 2021, at least on paper, right? But Jason Verrett was the centerpiece of the unit last year. He's merely icing on the cake this year. That's the best way to measure it. So with an arguably better defensive line, the best linebacking core in the league, and a definitely better secondary, the 49ers, remember, they finished last season as the number 3 defense in football down the stretch, weighted DVOA. They're below average first half of the season, finished as a top 5 unit. I really think that top 2 is possible, and it may be what they need to win a Super Bowl this year, because we expect growing pains for Trey Lance. As much as everybody's excited about Trey Lance's development, Steve Young very excited about Trey Lance's development. It's, this is... Trey today mentioned that he's talked a lot with Steve, and Jerry Rice is the guy that introduced Trey to Steve. So if you're a 49ers fan, you're probably geeking out about all this. I texted Steve Young today and I let him know, hey, Trey's talking about you now. You know, Trey's really excited that he's getting this tutelage. And Steve, gets back to me and he's excited about it. He's like, oh my God, I got to go talk to Trey again soon. I mean, the greats in 49ers history are intertwining with the future, who's Trey Lance. And Steve Young probably sees a lot of himself in Trey Lance, right? Mobile quarterback who's having to learn. Steve talked about it last week. He said, this is not about the processing for Trey Lance. He already knows how to process, which is a huge leg up for most toolsy quarterbacks, right, who don't have a lot of experience. Trey Lance is a natural up here. He's smart, but he's got to learn how to turn that processing into executing mechanically. Right? He's got to develop consistency with the release point. He has to develop that anticipation with his throws. He has to just make sure that essentially his body, which has all this prodigious ability physically, but he has to make sure that it catches up from a mechanical standpoint to what his mind is already able to see. And Steve Young was able to harness that during his playing career, turning from a guy that was immensely physically capable, but frustrating to Bill Walsh and his coaches, into the most efficient passer in NFL history. Well, the fact that Trey Lance gets to immerse himself in knowledge from Steve Young, gets to immerse himself in knowledge from Jerry Rice, that Jerry Rice is introducing Steve Young to him. God, I mean, that is what, being part of a great franchise like the 49ers, that's what it's all about. That's how a franchise can feed itself, right? The history can and the past and all that glory can feed the present, and then for the 49ers, feed the future. So you can be sure that I'm going to give you guys more Steve Young, Trey Lance updates as this thing progresses. Those of you just joining, subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get to 15K today. We're at 14.9. It's been a tremendous amount of growth, and if everybody who is watching who hasn't subscribed yet hits it right now, we can get up to there. I'm going to try to get another update from Mike. Mike, where are we at now? We are at 14,908 the last time that he chimed in with me on text message. So we'll see what Mike says here in a few seconds to see where we're at right now, because we're at high viewership right now. So I'm sure that a lot of people are helping with the cause right now. So we're waiting for word from Mike, and he'll let us know. What's considered a successful Lance preseason? Not getting hurt. I mean, come on, it's preseason. People are going to freak out. People are going to be all over the place. Preseason last year was absolutely insufferable with people prejudging Lance. Hell, people prejudging a veteran like Jimmy Garoppolo. People are using OTAs to do a lot of prejudging. Man, only 14,912. I'm disappointed. Only 4 of you have listened. Maybe all of you are already subscribers. I don't know. But we're 88 away. That's Freddie Solomon's number. We're 88 away. I was born in 1988 from 15K. So keep on hitting that subscribe button. I expect more out of you guys. I'm disappointed right now. But anyway, It was ridiculous last year. It just made my head hurt. Remember that game against the Chargers where Lance was terrible for a couple possessions? Then he looked better as the Chargers started taking out the starters. It's like, what did you expect? The guy just got here from North Dakota State, and people are having a food fight on Twitter, throwing stuff at each other virtually, obviously, yelling insults, hurling all kinds of bad energy over the preseason. And this year, of course, you would hope that Trey Lance looks a little bit sharper, but it's still the preseason. The 49ers, Trent Williams was surprised when I told him this today. He knew they played 20 games, regular and postseason games last year, but they played an NFL record 12 road games. No team in NFL history played more road games than the 2021 49ers. Anyway, just bring this up, the 20 and the 12 numbers to show you just how much of a marathon the season was last year and how much of a marathon the 49ers have to brace themselves for this season, which is why freaking out over the preseason and how Trey Lance does there is going to be really, really ill-advised. I do not advise it. It will not be good for your blood pressure. You will not survive the marathon of the season if you're sprinting through the preseason with some of that analysis. Tobin Ernst subscribed 5 times. What more do I want? I want 6 times. I want 7 times. Not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4. No, 88 subscribes. That's what I want. I want this up at 15K and be all good. Danny Gray has a hurt quad, and he's got a sore quad. I wouldn't say that he's got a hurt quad. Guys are going to be working off on the side. There's going to be some muscle issues here and there. I would not read too far into it at this moment. Thoughts on trading Garoppolo for Baker Mayfield? The 49ers couldn't afford that because, they could, but Baker has a worse contract than Jimmy. Jimmy is set to make the 25, 26 million this year, Baker 18, but all of Baker's is fully guaranteed. Jimmy doesn't have any fully guaranteed. The 49ers have way more flexibility with Jimmy. And hey, that's a mess in Cleveland with Deshaun Watson right now. Who knows what's going to happen there? And the Browns might be, if there is some kind of action that comes down from the league office, the Browns might be really happy that Baker Mayfield's still on the roster, although that would be really awkward since Baker Mayfield's been a lot less graceful about this situation than Jimmy Garoppolo. Both of them obviously, presumably, being replaced by other quarterbacks. Hell yeah, I am farming the subs today. Every once in a while, I have a right to do that, and it's before we hit a milestone like 20K. Another, the reason that I'm doing it is because I like to take a drink of water. I've been talking a lot. It's 37 minutes of me just talking straight, and I'm probably going to go for an hour, right? So I need to take a drink of water, and, I don't want it to just be dead air. I want you guys actually subscribing while I'm taking my drink of water. So it's a good way to kind of let it breathe a little bit. All right, more 49ers questions. I'm going to stay away from that Deshaun Watson discussion right now. I'm not as well versed in the latest as I should be to be discussing it in total depth, but it obviously, NFL discipline obviously is a possibility at the very least, and Baker Mayfield still is on that roster in Cleveland. Who do you see as the 6th wide receiver going into the season? Somebody asked me this on the field today, and I see the top 5. I think it's easy to identify the top 5, assuming no injuries. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Juwan Jennings, Ray McLeod, and Danny Gray. All right, that's 5. Who's going to be 6? Well, Malik Turner had the big day on the first opening of OTAs when media was first allowed to watch a couple weeks ago. Marcus Johnson looks good out of practice. He's another veteran, UT Longhorn. Then you got the 2 rookies, Taser Mack and Tay Martin. Both of those guys can move well. Then you have some other intriguing players. The 49ers signed to futures deals earlier, and Austin Mack and Keyshawn Johnson. There are so many possibilities. That's going to be one, really competitive battle for the final wide receiver spot. And it's one that I have to toss up my arms and say, I honestly don't know at this point. All right, we're going to go through a few more. How's Drake Jackson looking at OTAs? Drake was out last week, was some slight leg issue. To be honest, right now, the first OTAs, guys are just trying to get in shape. There's a lot of hard breathing at rookie minicamp. I know Drake Jackson got all that extra attention from Chris Kasarik because it was only him and Kevin Atkins there working out on the field with Chris Kasarik. So I'm sure that they didn't really enjoy that. But you got to whip these guys into shape, right? Because it's it's tough for these rookies. They're on all these rookie visits before the draft, 14 of them for Drake Jackson. So you kind of fall out of the usual conditioning routine. You're not in that kind of same spot. By the way, here in Redwood City, I'm very near the fire department. So if you hear those sirens, it's not the cops coming for me. It is literally fire trucks that leave the fire department. But I think that, long story short is we won't really be able to gauge Drake Jackson and, players in a similar boat as him, most of the rookies, until training camp. I know that Danny Gray is fast. I know that Drake Jackson is athletic. I know that Brock Purdy, looks a little bit like Jimmy Garoppolo as far as the mechanics. Some of the mechanics go, some of the off-platform weird arm angle throws, especially we saw a lot of that from Jimmy Garoppolo before the torn ACL. I know like really rudimentary stuff like that through these OTAs in this mini camp, but I'm not going to pretend that I know much more. It just isn't possible. The pads aren't on yet. The 49ers are getting their feet wet at this point. They might even call it after this mini camp and not even work out next week because Kyle Shanahan might think that they've had enough, that they've gotten enough practices in. And then they have to fast forward to the real thing. And that real thing starts in training camp. So I don't want to lie to you. Pads aren't on. We can't really firmly gauge where Drake Jackson is right now. Who was consulting and coaching Trey more in between plays and drills today in camp? Kubiak or Greasy? Kubiak and Greasy both have distinct roles. Brian Greasy has never coached before up until this year. Clay Kubiak, his assistant, has coached, but yes, he is Greasy's assistant. But you also have Bobby Slowick working with the quarterbacks. Kyle Shanahan, obviously, on the practice field is not going to be saying much to Trey Lance. That's probably going to happen more in the meeting room and away from the media. But the point is that all of these guys have their distinctive roles in working with Trey. And I think that's important because of the fact that Brian Greasy brings a different type of expertise than your standard veteran quarterbacks coach. He's been a quarterback himself. He's worked under Elway. He's worked under Mike Shanahan. He's been a backup. He's been a starter. He's been a Monday Night Football analyst. But Brian Greasy has never been a quarterbacks coach, whereas Clay Kubiak has worked on the technical details with quarterbacks. So you're developing a quarterback from an on-field perspective, and you're also developing him from an off-field perspective since the job is so all-encompassing. And I think that, Clay Kubiak may be in Trey Lance's ear a little bit more for some of the on-field nuts and bolts. But on an overall level, I think that Brian Greasy is going to be in Trey Lance's ear just as much, if not more. Brian Greasy is the guy having those meetings about mentality. When the 49ers quarterbacks first sat down with Brian Greasy after the hiring of the new quarterbacks coach, Brian Greasy looked around the room and he said, I want to know what everyone's why is. Why do you play football? Why are you here? Because when you get into those tough times, when the media starts ripping you apart, when Twitter is unkind to you, when your family is starting to see a lot of this negative stuff following a bad game, and the team is 3-5, and the 49ers had that last year, you're going to have to dig deep. This is not an easy sport. And this is what Brian Greasy told Trey and told Brock Purdy and, told Nate Sudfeld. So Brian Greasy said, what's your why? You have to identify why you play this game. And it can't just be because of the money. It can't just be because I want more followers on social media. There has to be something really tangible and really substantive that you play for that allows you to persevere through the adversity that certainly is coming at the quarterback position. And the group with Brian Greasy helming the meeting started talking about, you play for your teammates. You play for the man next to you. You play for respect. Stuff like that, stuff that men play for. You can't, because if it's only going to be social media, that doesn't help in the biting cold at Lambeau Field when you're down 10 points and, you're trailing, in the standings as well during the season. Then there's a whole lot of vitriol out there for you. If you're going to maintain that level-headedness and that confidence and that composure to be able to attack any given situation, even if, that situation is not a hospitable one. And obviously you're working against pass rushers who want to destroy you and NFL level defenses that aren't easy to move the ball against. If you're going to succeed in that situation, you better have a good reason for playing. And that's something that Brian Greasy instilled on the 49ers quarterbacks. David, do we pay both Greenlaw and Aziz or trade one? If trade, which one goes? You don't have to decide who to pay until next offseason. So the 49ers are in a spot right now where they don't have to make this decision. That's next offseason. And next offseason, they decide who to pay. I think you keep linebacker depth right now because you're trying to win football games right now. And both Greenlaw and Alshire are good players. Let this season play out so you could see what's going to happen. Jerry Rice should have been used as a wide back. I'm not so sure about that one. Jerry was fast. Jerry was tough. But, I mean, we talk about wide back. Deebo Samuel is literally a wide back. I mean, here, let's put this back up on the screen. This is from practice today. There they are. There's Deebo standing next to and walking next to Javon Kinlaw. I'm going to pause it right there. Javon Kinlaw is built like a Hercules. We see him on the left. But look to the right. Deebo Samuel is literally a wide back. He's wider than Javon Kinlaw. And it's not because Deebo Samuel's out of shape. It's because Deebo Samuel is a load. And this is why it's so hard for defensive backs to tackle him. And this is why it was very appealing for the 49ers to line him up in that backfield and why they're still going to do that moving into the future. But Jerry Rice wasn't built like Deebo Samuel. So no, I don't think that the 49ers should have lined Jerry Rice up there. There's Deebo running, still moving well. Wasn't hurt, just wasn't participating in practice, was out there over on the side field. Hit that sub button. We're trying to hit 15K tonight. We're serious about this. Let's do it. All right, scrolling up. Let's see more. Charvarius Ward and Trey Lance are the two biggest reasons why the 49ers are a better team this year over last year. Well, Charvarius Ward, definitely. Trey Lance, TBD. We need to see if he's, I mean, the 49ers obviously think he'll be a long-term upgrade over Jimmy Garoppolo, but for the short term, it's not going to be easy. The 49ers had a good quarterback last year. The 49ers made it to the NFC Championship game. They were just short of the Super Bowl, even though their quarterback was playing hurt. And Trey Lance wasn't ready for that kind of burden yet, and he himself was hurt. But Trey Lance has the upside. Trey Lance has impressed the 49ers. Trey Lance has gotten the 49ers to a point where they are very, very excited, right? But until he proves it on the field on a week in and week out basis, then we're in a position where we can't be sure that they're going to be better at the quarterback position. So it's wait and see. John Lynch says the same thing. Steve Young says the same thing. It's wait and see. The talent for Trey Lance is nearly limitless. And that's what makes this so exciting. But the 49ers have to package it all together. Trey has to package it all together. And that's why this season is going to be must-see TV. Looks like Jake Brendel will be center. Yes, Brendel, Brendel. I know I'm not going to put you on blast for your spelling, but I just want to get Jake Brendel's name written there correctly. Jackson is in there, but he has to beat out Kamoko Toure. Yeah, Toure's good. You know, and yeah, I mean, you want him to beat him out, but the 49ers, again, strength in numbers is going to be the calling card of that defensive line. All right, more questions. Let's go. Let's answer Rohan's question here. I've been optimistic about Brendel. He spelled Brendel's name right. I've been optimistic about Brendel starting. Has he shown anything flashy and limited offensive line practice? No, nothing in these practices that, you know, would flash at me. Nothing's happened that has made me notice an offensive lineman, and that's usually actually a good thing. But this is what stands out to me most about Jake Brendel. Let me open it up on my Twitter. This is going to be coming out in the article tomorrow morning. I'm going to share the screen. This is Jake Brendel's spider chart coming out of the 2016 college class, UCLA. Those are some really good metrics on the bottom, and those are all the movement metrics. 20-yard shuttle, 97th percentile. 3-cone drill, 90th percentile. Broad jump, 84th percentile. 40-yard dash, 90th percentile. The guy is an athlete, and the 49ers love their athletes up front because you got to be able to get from point A to point B quickly. You have to be explosive to execute some of the blocks that Kyle Shanahan requires in the outside zone scheme. It's definitely a quick twitched offense where you need those quick twitch linemen. Trent Brown, for example, didn't fit really well with the 49ers because he was such a huge body that, yeah, he can move well for being 380 pounds, but could he move well enough to get to the spots that Kyle Shanahan needed him to in the outside zone? No, and it's probably even harder at the center position because those guys are tasked with some really difficult ones. The Niners loved Weston Richburg for that reason. They re-signed Alex Mack, even though he was 36 for that reason, because he was able to get to some of those spots. And they think that Jake Brendel can get to those spots. So Jake Brendel is hands down the favorite to succeed Alex Mack. And I have a big article about that coming tomorrow morning. Might even shoot a separate video to kind of promote that article, get you guys to check it out. Trent Williams glowing about Jake Brendel's athleticism. But you look at this spider chart right here, and what you'll notice is that while it's really good on the bottom half, it's a little bit lacking on the top half. Now, the place where Brendel is at his weakest, at the 3rd percentile, so that's not great. that's actually really bad, is weight. But remember that this was when he only weighed 286 pounds coming out of UCLA. And Brendel was skinny back then. There's no doubt about it. If you put Jake Brendel into Wikipedia, I think you get his UCLA picture. I'm going to put this up here really quickly. Let's find it. And tell me that he doesn't look like a tight end back in the day at UCLA. Let me find it. Oh, okay, yeah, here it is. I'm going to pop this one open one more time. So here's Brendel's Wikipedia page. And you could see him on the right there playing for UCLA. I mean, he looks like a blocking tight end. Like, the frame is not an O-lineman's frame. So he was light coming out of UCLA. Nobody's denying that. And that's why when we look at this spider chart right here, that weight was in the 3rd percentile. It wasn't enough to be a capable NFL starting offensive lineman, right? Because you have to be able to anchor in pass protection. They're going to be big defensive tackles coming at you. Javon Kinlaw is one of them, but he doesn't come at Jake Brendel, maybe in practice. He's not going to be coming at him during the game. That's good for Jake Brendel. But Aaron Donald, he could rush over center, right? He just signed for record money just yesterday. Hard-charging linebackers on the blitz. So you got to be able to dig those feet in, anchor into that turf, and have the strength to at least hold the rusher off for 2 seconds, 1.5 seconds, just anything except for getting pancaked into the quarterback, right? And at 286 pounds, you're not going to be able to do it in the NFL. The 49ers used to run a ton of light offensive linemen out there in the 90s, right? It was like a precursor to what Shanahan likes. He likes the run blockers, but he just needs just enough for pass protection. But Bart Oates, the 49ers center, with Steve Young in that 94 Super Bowl season. Bob McKittrick, offensive linemen, were lighter. But even those 49ers had to adapt to the changing times. The Green Bay, who was coming out there with Gilbert Brown. Remember how fat that guy was? Gilbert Brown was huge, right? I mean, he had to weigh 390. That was insane. But Gilbert Brown and those types of players, Reggie White obviously, would dominate the 49ers front. They lost to the Packers year after year after year, and the 49ers finally said, you know what, we got to get bigger at the guard position. So they went out and they got Ray Brown. They signed Kevin Gogan. They signed big 320, 330-pound offensive guards, and they're finally able to beat Green Bay. They're finally able to stymie some of that pass rush up front. Well, Jake Brendel had to get stronger over his time in the NFL. And he now weighs about 300 pounds, which is what Alex Mack weighed, which is what Weston Richburg weighed, what Daniel Kilgore weighed, what Ben Garland weighed. All centers under Shanahan who are heavy enough to anchor enough in pass protection to be passable. And that's going to be the test for Jake Brendel. Has he gotten strong enough to anchor in pass protection? Because he's smart enough. The 49ers think he's a coach on the field, and he can move well enough to run block, but it's that pass protection that's going to be the key for him. I will say right now that the 49ers are impressed in many regards with Jake Brendel's game, and that means that he's very likely, I think, to start. Maybe just likely. I'll say likely. He is the favorite at this early stage in the process. So thanks for the good question. David, have you been impressed by or hear any buzz about any players flashing so far the first day? Well, this is just an extension of OTA, so it's not really the first day. So, I mean, the same guys that I've liked continue to impress me over the course of this mini camp. Trey Lance has impressed me. Yes, today I thought was his best day. Danny Gray wasn't a participant today, but he had impressed me before. Jawan Jennings, I thought, has really been standing out. Kyle Shanahan agrees with me. He even said he's one of the best separators in the 49ers wide receiver room, despite running one of the slowest 40s in that room. So it goes to show you that the instinctiveness of football, that's some really important stuff. It's not just about how fast you can run in a straight line. It's about being a football player. And Jawan Jennings certainly is one. And Jimmy Ward, Jimmy Ward always impresses me because Jimmy Ward, I mean, he just looks the part. He's all over the field. Talanoa Hufanga has been the opposite starting safety. We'll see if that continues moving forward. But Charvarius Ward too. He didn't participate today. 49ers gave him a practice off, but that guy's the real deal as well. You could tell he's a big money cornerback, and the 49ers are happy to have him. All right, I'm scrolling down. More questions. 400 of you right now. Subscribe to the channel. I don't know where we're at with the sub count. We are at 14,921. So, yeah, I don't know. I'm not optimistic, guys. We're still 79 away from 15,000. I don't think we're going to hit it on the live, but if you want to do your part, then go ahead and hit that subscribe button if you're just walking into the room. Thank you, Pizza Man. I appreciate you. I'm not going to eat pizza tonight, though. I'm going to go to In-N-Out Burger. In-N-Out Burger is where it's going to be. David, how's Burford? Is he the right guard? Maybe, but I would think that Daniel Brunskill is the favorite to start at right guard. All right, 55 minutes. We're going to go for a few more. Who do you think starts at nickel? Does Womack have a shot? Yes. Maybe not likely to start at the very start of the season, but at some point, Womack has got long arms. He's 5'9", but Womack's arms are the length of Richard Sherman's arms. And he runs a 4.4, so he's faster than a guy like Sherman. So Womack has all the potential in the world. I think if you built somebody in a lab to be a slot cornerback, then Samuel Womack III, might be that guy. And the 49ers got him in the 5th round. I think there might be a market inefficiency there. I think that the league doesn't value slot corners as much as it should. Cooper Kupp lines up in the slot 2/3 of the time. That slot corner is going to have to man him up. One of the unsung heroes of the 49ers 2021 season was Darqueze Dennard, who might start at slot corner for the 49ers to begin this season. Darqueze Dennard came in week 18 when the 49ers season was on the line, and he helped neutralize Cooper Kupp down the stretch of that game. K'Wan Williams obviously was a good player for the 49ers for the past several seasons, but the league for some reason doesn't like to pay nickels as much and doesn't like to draft them as high, even though that position is so important with literally the best receiver in football lining up in the 49ers division in the slot so often. So the 49ers might have discovered a market inefficiency to get such an important DB in the 5th round with Samuel Womack, and we'll see if his development continues on a positive trajectory. Are the Warriors winning tomorrow? What do you guys think? I'm watching tomorrow at the Alameda Theater. I've heard it's a wild scene, so I booked tickets at the Alameda Theater, and we're going to watch on a 50-foot screen. So practice for me tomorrow, 49ers Minicamp, writing an article, YouTube Live, do all that good stuff, connect with you guys, then Warriors game at the Alameda Theater. And then on Friday, I'm watching at the Athletic Club Oakland, not related to the company I work for. It's a bar, the Athletic Club Oakland. That's also wild. Have a reservation there. So going to be fun to watch the Warriors the next 2 days. We're at 14,928, so that's good. We're 72 away. So we're making progress on the sub front. I appreciate it, guys. I really do, as we are 3 minutes away from an hour. Look at me. I've been talking for an hour, and I haven't lost my voice. I have a good voice. I don't think I really lose it unless I get sick or something. So, all right, guys. Let's see. Good questions here. Good questions. Keep on coming. Somebody thinks Celtics in 6. Are they talking about Jimmy about starter-like things like playbook study, or is he just rehabbing? No, he's just rehabbing. They think Trey's going to be the starter, and they're going to trade Jimmy. Now, if they can't trade Jimmy, he's still on the roster. They're saying he's going to be in training camp. Maybe at that point, you make Trey earn the job through a competition. I don't know. Kyle might want that. I think they're just crossing every subsequent bridge when they get to it. They're not thinking too far ahead. The first bridge to cross is Jimmy needs to start throwing the football again, and that's not going to happen until the 49ers get to July, probably. So probably a month away. And then the trade market can heat up. Then we could start talking about different things, right? So it's one of those situations where we just have to be patient. We really do. And the 49ers are being patient. They don't owe Jimmy Garoppolo any money right now. They won't until if and when he makes the 53-man roster. So they have nearly $5 million in cap space right now, by the way, the 49ers do. So with that $5 million in cap space, there's theoretically enough money to sign both Bosa and Deebo Samuel, because if you look at Warner's contract last year, they were able to keep the same cap hit pre and post extension, and they could theoretically backload, and I think they're going to want to backload both Bosa and Deebo Samuel. So the 49ers don't need the potential cap space that'll be freed up by Jimmy Garoppolo until much, much further down the line. They still have a couple months before they have to make a move on this. So first you wait for him to get healthy, then you see how things unfold, and the 49ers expect all of that to happen. What's it like between Huff and Odom? Odom more for a special teams role? Yeah, I think as of right now, Odom is the third safety, special teams focus, and Hufanga is the second safety. But this can all change during training camp. This can all change with injuries as guys usurp each other. Remember, Hufanga knows the system better than George Odom, who just came over from Indianapolis. So you wouldn't expect Odom to be the second safety at this point. You would expect him to have to absorb the playbook over the course of this offseason and then make his move in training camp. Poe at fullback is indeed scary. Mike Frost decided to invite me to In-N-Out Burger tonight. Thank you, Mike. I really appreciate you. That actually is awesome. So thank you. David, your full opinion. What do you think the 49ers record this year with Trey Lance starting? You know, people give me some heat because I just made a record prediction for the 49ers, 9-8, a lot of close games. You know what that means, though? That means that I think they're going to be a good team. They're going to play a lot of close games. Some of them could break against them. 9-8 could easily mean 3 more wins, right? It could easily mean 12-5. Somewhere between 9-8 and 12-5. That's where I think the 49ers are going to be. Now, if Trey really takes off sooner rather than later, then you could start talking 13-4. Then you could really start talking to elite records, because I think this could be an elite 49ers defense, improved special teams. And if Trey is better sooner rather than later, well, then you could start talking championship. But I don't know if that's going to happen. I don't know when it's going to happen. That's why you kind of stick in that mediocre area, right? Because it's hard to be bad and it's hard to be really good in the NFL. Everybody's kind of in the middle. Until Trey can prove that he is the guy for not just the regular season, but the postseason, the guy to really lead a team that, you know, to a spot beyond just that middle ground, just that 9-8, 10-7 ground. Until he could prove that, you have to hover around there, right? Because it might take a year or two for Trey to get to that point. He's still young. He just turned 22 years old. So that's my prediction for the 49ers this season. Explain the dual citizenship. So I am a citizen of the United States of America. I was born here, but my mom is from the Czech Republic, from Prague. I don't know if anybody's ever been there. That's where I proposed to my fiance. I'm sure you guys saw that on my Instagram. That was it was in early April, right? So it's been a couple months already now. Prague, I think, is the most beautiful city in the world. Check it out if you haven't had a chance to. But because my mom was full Czech when I was born, I was able to get a second passport, and I'm a dual citizen of here and there. I speak Czech fluently. So if anybody here is from the Czech Republic, maybe I could start doing this YouTube live in a different language, but I'm not going to belabor you guys with speaking Czech right now, because in all likelihood, all of you only speak English or some other language that isn't Czech. So I actually had to renew my passport. So I was in Nashville this weekend. I flew from Nashville to LAX, surgical strike, went to do my biometrics for my Czech passport in Westwood in LA, where Jake Brendel went to school. Let's tie that one in. And then I went back to LAX and I flew up to the Bay Area. Now I'm here at the 49ers facility. I'm going to be back there tomorrow. I don't want to say any bad words in Czech. Stay tuned on another show. I'll prepare something good to say in Czech about the 49ers. I'm not going to do it right now, though. Jayhawk. You went to London, want to go to Czech. You know, London's good for being an anchor airport for Europe. You can get a lot of cheap flights into London, and then you get a lot of cheap flights from London to other places in Europe. So to me, London is too much like America for me to get too excited about London. It's a great city, but if I'm already going out to Europe, it feels a little too American for me. You got to get a little bit further. You got to get past the British Isles to get into the heartland of Europe, where you're going to get that very, very different experience. Maybe it's because people are speaking English still, you know, in London, albeit with a weird accent, of course, that British accent. It's just too stilted for me. I know there's a lot of you in Britain that are going to be all upset, but I don't like your accent. Now, my fiance loves your accent, but I'm just, you know, I may be a dual citizen, but I'm American through and through, and I prefer the American way of speaking English. How do I like Italy? We went to Italy right after we were in Prague in April. I love Italy. My last name is Italian. So my grandfather on the Czech side, So the Czech grandfather from Prague actually grew up in northern Italy. But my name comes from my dad's side, which is also a Swiss Italian, northern Italian name, Lombardi. It means the long bearded ones. So I had to live up to my name by growing out a beard. And I've kept the beard because people seem to like it. So I am now one of the long bearded ones, Lombardi. Comes all the way from Roman history. When Rome was sacked by the barbarians, it was invaders from the north. There were Germanic invaders from the north that they called the long-bearded ones, the Lombards. They came through, and they were part of the crew that sacked the Roman Empire, and they settled in northern Italy, Milan, that whole area. It's called Lombardia, the land of the long-bearded ones. So all good. Shots fired at... I didn't know. Well, I fired shots at the British. Yeah, I'm not a fan of the British accent. I'm American. I have a right to be proud of my accent. Now, the British sound smarter, but the Americans sound more relaxed, I guess I should say. Right? Isn't that American accent a little bit more casual? It flows a little bit better. I don't know. It's all a matter of opinion. It's all good. London, great city. Gonna have to go back there at some point. How does the offensive line look? Any team drills showing them in sync and communicating? It's still early. Again, OTAs, minicamp. The thing about the offensive line is they're not going to have pads on right now. It's going to be harder to protect the quarterback. Kyle Shanahan's been happy with some of the run blocking communication. I could tell you about that, but camp is going to help us gauge the line a lot better and then the regular season. Well, I'm looking to see if there's any more questions, but I think we're going to call it a show here. This is the longest of all time. All right, so our goal was to get to 15,000. Mike last checked in, and he said that we're at 14,934. So maybe when I wake up tomorrow, we'll be at 15K, but we have 66 to go. So if you have not subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button right now. This is the only show that I'm really pushing it this hard. I just think that it's a cool milestone, so you can be part of it. Really appreciate all you guys. Hit the sub button, hit the like button, do all that. Hope that you enjoyed the show today. It was a fun one. We went through a lot of stuff. Everybody take care. I am off to In-N-Out Burger.